Hello, Ninja Bear here, and today I wanted to go over a quick little boulder attack that I played. Um, and it is a different way of playing that I found out that can get black to equality and potentially have some sharp tactical lines in it. So we have the boulder attack, bishop to c4. Um, Knight to c6 is the first move. Um, with ideas of eventually, of course, playing for e6 and d5. But we want to first develop our knight in order to guard against any tricky traps of uh, quick checkmates for blitz. Um, this is this was actually a 5-minute game, but if there was a 1-minute game, we might run into like a queen h5 line, which would be a little bit interesting. So anyway, we have next move d3, and maybe not the best way to develop other pieces, but immediately after d3 I have g6, and g6 of course is going to be opening up that yummy h8 a1 diagonal for the black square bishop. And we have a simple developing move that may be it is getting ready to castle, but maybe it was a subpar move. And we have our bishop developed and our knight developed, and the thematic e6 move has been put in on the board. And this is a move order that I've kind of studied a little bit, as far as getting people out of, quote, their repertoire book, so to speak, and getting people out of the quote main line or whatever. I don't know what the boulder attack main line is, but I've been wanting something different to play, like I said, but with the same ideas. So here we have the interesting move, like, oh my goodness, hey Ninja Bear, you just blundered a pawn somehow, right? Because there's hardly any way to defend that. Well, I do go ahead and blunder this pawn with knight g to e7. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say, first of all, that my opponent does not take, but we're going to go over briefly a line. This is where I was saying, as far as the tactical lines, of what happens if white takes black's pawn. So you might see some crazy evaluations going on, but needless to say, there's really a reason why d6 is played. And in order to keep the bishop, white has to play back to a6. It's the only move. So if white plays something like here, we have the tricky trap of being able to fork. And we have a fork for the position. Let's go back. And very similar, if any other moves, we can just trust me that bishop to a6 is the only move. All right, so with this idea, we have the second thematic point of the boulder attack that black has, and that is with a6. Now notice that there's a lot of pieces on the board, and white has somewhat of a central control, and that was because of the move order that he played with d3. In order to protect his pawn, he did not push out or try to push d5. So a6, and white can make multiple amounts of moves, but any move aside from this move is probably going to be a blunder, because we have another fork that's coming up that's going to win material. If white castles, of course, then we have the thematic b5, and white will lose a piece for 2 pawns at minimum. And that, of course, as you can see, was coming up. And if we have bishop back, well, once again, we have b5. And b5 will eventually, of course, fork the uh, bishop and the knight on their relative squares there. So what to do to get out of this? Well, that's where d4 comes in. And d4 gets us out of this as white, but gives black equal chances after b5 and bishop back, or not bishop back, I'm sorry. Bishop doesn't move, d5, and the key move for black in order to maintain equality or some type of advantage to be able to make sure that they are moving their pieces to good squares is b4. Now, I'll briefly go over what our idea is, and then I'll take it, and then play would continue from here. Our idea is to capture back our pawn with our knight after taking the bishop. The key thing is the bishop can take, the knight can take, and then after a6, or a3, I'm sorry, the knight can take on d. So, and then this leads us to an equal endgame, or an equal endgame, an equal position. But we still have pieces on the board, and there's a lot of material that can be exchanged out later on. So this type of situation, I feel, is probably best for white, that white can achieve. Some tricky traps and different things is if white plays anything else, we're going to end up getting into that fork on b4. And if white plays something silly, we just end up taking the bishop. So this is a very nice little tactical, like I said, position. The key moves for white is after this a6 move to play d4 and d5. After d5, there's also some ways that black can go wrong, where this might lead to subpar, like a subpar position, which I'll go ahead and see the line here. Bishop b3. And then there's no more fork. So this might be something that gives white, like I said, their ideal setup, potentially. Rook b8. Okay, and renews the pressure. But this overall, like I said, might be something that would be not as good for black. So I just want to quickly go over the game. Like I said, I thought I blundered the pawn, and immediately, of course, we have our forking idea. d5, winning the piece. And then it's pretty standard. I make a few inaccuracies. And I'll have a quick little puzzle for you. Here in a minute. Alright, black just wins a pawn. And I made the mistake, and I think it was a blunder. I don't remember if it was a mistake or a blunder, of taking the queen. But black to move and win more material. Can you find the move? And the hint is winning multiple amounts of material. and that is queen takes pawn, with the idea of being able to take the knight on the next move. And this would have ended up leading to maybe a cleaner win. I ended up taking the queen, inaccuracy. Then I took the knight, and then I took the pawn. And then do you see a potential trap that can be set up for black? Your hint is with the knight. And basically, I ended up playing with the knight. To move the king to the back row was my plan. And if king moves over to e2, I was going to bring the other rook into the game with check. And potentially, of course, set up a be able to trade down even more pieces. And if the king moves over to c2, which he does, there's the fork right there, straight in the center on e3. And my opponent disconnected or / abandoned the game. So a new interesting way to play the Bowdler attack. I know that there are different ways to play the Bowdler attack, but this was something that I've just been, not necessarily that I've been having problems with the Bowdler attack, but I've been finding it a little boring to play when people play it, and I wanted something to spice it up a little bit. And it still has the thematic ideas of playing a6 and e6 within it. So also is, as far as the line that white decides to go through with d3, possibly, of course, is maybe best play or slightly best play that black can do in order to start to gain an advantage somehow. And I feel like for the Bowdler attack, the ideas of getting an advantage, all with proper play, of course, and the same ideas of what you're trying to do with the Bowdler attack as black, go for black. There's really hardly anything that white can do unless he's willing to be crazy enough to sacrifice his bishop on f7. And I don't remember what that's called, but like I said, I think that this is a new interesting way to play, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for viewing.